Meditation has passed, regardless of the rights and wrongs of others. Introspection is a clear spring that cleanses the mind. When he was young, Wang Yangming went to Zhuangguan to open his eyes. He was deeply attracted by the desert scenery. When he came back, he expressed to his father his ambition to level Tata with tens of thousands of men at that time. His father criticized him for being too arrogant. After some reflection and introspection, Wang Yangming admitted his mistake to his father. Wang Yangming is good at introspection. And from the day he made up his mind to become a sage, managing things in poverty has become his daily necessary task. However, the results cannot be seen in 1 or 2 days. In the process of case things, Wang Yangming was also able to establish the theory of mind through introspection, reflection and overturning his theory again and again. It can be said that Wang Yangming's success is inseparable from his ability to reflect on himself. Introspection lies in constant self-reflection, and being good at taking on life. You're part of the responsibility. Wang Yangming believes that people should always reflect on themselves. If they always blame others, they can only see other people's mistakes, but they will not see their own shortcomings. Return to introspection. You can see your own shortcomings, and you won't blame others. A person who is not good at reflecting on his own faults always puts the blame on others and God, but it is almost impossible to reflect on himself. Such a person will not succeed. Some people doubt the role of self-reflection, thinking that introspection for a long time may not change anything. In fact, after its cleansing, we can let the dust disturbed by the world flow away from our hearts. An old man lives with his little grandson. Every morning, the old man sits at the kitchen table and reads a book. One day, his grandson asked, "Grandpa, I try to read like you, but I don't understand the meaning of the book. I finally understood a little, but I forgot as soon as I closed the book. What can be gained from reading in this way?" The old man quietly threw some coal into the stove. Then he said, "Use this basket of coal to go to the river to fetch a basket of water." The child did, but the water in the basket leaked out before he came back. The child looked at his grandfather with a puzzled face. The old man looked at the empty basket in his hand, smiled and said, "You should run faster." Then let the child try again. This time, the child speeded up. But the water in the basket still leaked out before he came back. He said to his grandfather, "It's impossible to fetch water with a basket." With that, he went to the room to get a bucket. The old man said, "I don't need a bucket of water, but a basket of water. You can do it. You just didn't do your best." Then he went outside and watched the child try again. Now, the child already knows that it is impossible to hold water in a basket. Although he ran very fast, when he ran up to the old man, the water in the basket leaked out. The child gasped and said, "Grandpa, you see, this is useless. Do you really think it's useless at all?" The old man smiled and said, "Look at this basket." The child looked at the basket, and found that it had indeed changed compared with before. "The basket is so clean that there is no soot on it. Son, this is like reading. You may not remember anything, but when you read, it still affects you and purifies your mind. In fact, each of us should have a book of the soul, even if we do not remember a word, but still can. For the rest of my life, because it will make our hearts as clear and pure as spring water. This is the role of introspection. Introspection is an important method of moral perfection, and a clear spring to cleanse the mind. It can bring a ray of light to our chaotic mind. When we are lost, when we fall into the trap of sin, when our souls are twisty, when we are complacent, introspection is like a spring, washing away the dirt of shallowness, impetuosity, depression, insidiousness, complacency, arrogance and other dirt in the mind, and reproducing fresh, high-spirited, vigorous and elegant melodies, so that life is shining and full of life. The main purpose of introspection is to find out mistakes, and correct them in time, so introspection must not be intoxicated with achievements, let alone cover up mistakes. Only by self-examination and self-examination in a quiet state of mind, can we overcome the interference of mood and emotion, discover who we really are, and capture the mistakes of self-righteousness at ordinary times. Only by being good at discovering and daring to admit your mistakes can you further correct your mistakes. We often fail to see our own shortcomings, and many of them are only known through the points of others. This requires us to have a normal mind to treat other people's well-intentioned exhortations and accusations and reflect on our own mistakes. As the saying goes, good advice is good for deeds, and those good advice can often illuminate the other side that we are not aware of. Tang Taizong Li Shimin has a mirror Prime Minister Wei Zheng. Relying on the face-to-face remonstrance of this loyal minister, Emperor Taizong corrected many of his shortcomings, improved the way of governing the country, and ushered in the unprecedented prosperity of the country. The achievement of this brilliant achievement is due not only to Wei Zheng's courage to speak bluntly, but also to Li Shimin's magnanimity. Just imagine, if he had been a foolish king, who did not listen to opinions, Wei Zheng might have landed his head long ago. It was precisely because after listening to Wei Zheng's remonstrance, that he was able to seriously review and reflect on himself. The seemingly harsh-sounding opinions became the golden advice for the governance of the country, and Li Shimin's personality became noble. Introspection is a painful process of self-dissection. It is like a man who picks up a knife and cuts off the tumor with his own hands. It takes great courage to realize his mistake, but it is not easy to face it with an honest heart. To know how to examine oneself is great wisdom. To dare to examine oneself is to be brave. Cutting a tumor can be unbearable pain and leave scars, but it is the only way to eradicate the virus. As long as magnanimous mind to the sun and the moon, the heart is open and above board, the courage of self-reflection will be doubled. Wang Yangming's theory of conscience, that is, to see sex clearly, is to take the heart as the reason, and everything is in the heart, so as long as you reflect on yourself, it is to lead to conscience. Confucius said, "The fault of a gentleman is like the eclipse of the sun and the moon. Everyone sees it, and what's more, everyone admires it." This means that after the solar eclipse, the sun is more brilliant. When the lunar eclipse returns, the moon is brighter and brighter. The faults of a gentleman are like solar and lunar eclipses, which can be seen by everyone. But after correction, they will be more respected by people. Keep it at rest and examine it when you move. Lei Ozi said in Daojing, "He who knows others is wise, and he who knows himself is wise. Only when you know yourself can you know others." Indeed, one needs to be self-aware, especially in times of predicament and low status. One should reflect on himself, and think more about his own shortcomings and deficiencies in order to make progress through continuous self-adjustment. Wang Yangming also attaches great importance to self-examination. He said that self-examination is when there is something wrong, and it is when there is nothing wrong. Through introspection, you can see that you are the basis of success, and you should not be confused and muddle through the day because of the unsatisfactory circumstances. If you cannot recognize yourself, it is easy to be conceited and complacent. Just like a container full of water, which will overflow at the slightest shake. If a person's heart is full of pride, it is difficult to listen to other people's advice, learn from other people's experience, and accept new knowledge. In the long run, it is bound to rest on its laurels, or come to a standstill, or be suddenly frustrated. In the days of Deu, a rebellious vassal was invaded by Hu's army. Xia Yu sent his son Boqi to resist, but Boqi was defeated. His subordinates were very unconvinced, and asked to continue the attack, but Boqi said, "No. I have more troops than him, and the land is bigger than him, but I have been defeated by him. This must be because I am not as virtuous as he is, and my method of leading troops is not as good as his. From today on, I must try my best to correct it." From then on, Boqi got up early every day to work, had a light meal, took care of the people, appointed talented people, and respected moral people. After a year, Hu knew, not only dared not to invade again, but surrendered voluntarily. Like Boqi, who is willing to review himself modestly, and correct what is missing immediately, then he will give up the final success. Boqi's experience coincided with a sentence of Confucius, who said, "It's over." I have never seen anyone who deeply blames himself when he sees his fault. Confucius taught students to cultivate self-cultivation, that is, to pay attention to self-cultivation. And litigation is an indispensable part of self-cultivation. The so-called internal litigation, to put it simply, is to judge yourself from the heart. How to judge? That is, to weigh emotion and reason, justice and human desire in the heart, to find out one's own shortcomings and to reflect on oneself from time to time. It is ridiculous and pitiful to be complacent and self-sufficient when you learn something, even to be invincible and blindly proud. A person who is dissatisfied with himself is like a wooden basin filled with stones, sand, lime and water. It can always put down more things, and life will improve over time. People who are dissatisfied with themselves will recharge themselves anytime, anywhere. And they will never be proud of their knowledge and achievements, because they know that although the capacity of the container is limited, the minds can expand infinitely. They always put themselves in the lowest position, but in fact they can be infinitely close to greatness. Life is like a scale. It is easy to feel inferior when you weigh yourself, and it is easy to be arrogant when you weigh yourself. Only when you weigh yourself correctly, can you realistically and appropriately perceive yourself, improve yourself, know yourself in your heart. Know how many bowls of dry rice you can eat, and how much value you have to achieve self-knowledge. According to Lus Chunkia, one needs to know not only his own abilities, but also his strengths and weaknesses in order to make progress through continuous self-adjustment. In reality, people often praise themselves, and some people are overconfident, and always feels superior, ignoring the importance of doing things, causing unnecessary embarrassment and tragedy. Of course, there are also people who despise themselves, which are often self-contemptuous and self-abased. More depressed than enterprising, always thinking that they are not as good as others, and are often in infinite suffering. Self-knowledge comes from self-cultivation and self-care. Because self-examination can lead to self-discipline, self-discipline can lead to self-respect and self-respect. And self-respect can enable self-confidence and self-reliance. Self-esteem is integrity, self-knowledge is wisdom, self-control is self-cultivation. People have the mind of self-knowledge, their personality is upright, their behavior is neither humble nor arrogant. Their moral character is praised up and down, and their careers come from both sides. There is an one-word difference between self-knowledge and self-knowledge, 2 results. People who know they don't know are often dazed, carried away, can't see the problems, put them in the wrong position, can't find the fulcrum of life, and can't control the boat of life's destiny. The key to self-knowledge lies in the word, clear, knowing yourself like the back of your hand, so you can size up the situation and be good at seeking advantages and avoiding disadvantages, with few frustrations. And the expected value will be higher. Therefore, Wang Yangming said that if ignorant people can really examine things, then stupidity will become smart, and weakness will become strong. Look at yourself and constantly improve yourself. Introspection is a clear mirror. It can see the defilement of the soul, and then illuminate the way forward. At work, there are many people who often complain, but don't look for reasons on themselves. In fact, the reasons for a person's failure are various, only from many aspects to find the causes of failure, and targeted self-examination can play the role of error correction. When you see people who are better than you have to strive for progress to keep pace with them. And when you see bad ones, you have to reflect on whether you have such mistakes or bad habits. In this way, we will not be strict with others and be lenient with ourselves. If you want to be a successful and great person, you should be strict with yourself, be lenient to others. Perfect yourself through self-examination, and discover and develop your own strengths. Chen Xiang was a famous poet in the early Tang dynasty. His hometown is Shihong County, Sichuan Province, and he came to Chang'an, the capital, with his father when he was young. Because his parents usually spoil him, he still doesn't like reading when he is a teenager. He only knows how to go out of town, to hunt and play with his friends every day, or he is looking for people to fight cockfights and gamble everywhere. With the passage of time, Chen Xiang gradually grew up, when his parents found that their precious son was ignorant, and began to worry about his future. His parents couldn't bear to see his daily behavior, and advised him many times to get rid of his bad habits and study hard. But Chen Xiang is used to loitering for a long time. How can he listen? One day, when he was passing a book school while playing, he overheard the teacher say something like this outside the window: whether a person can enjoy honor and humiliation depends entirely on his own character. People with good character will naturally enjoy honor. People with bad character will naturally suffer humiliation. If a person is laissez-faire, arrogant, and has evil and filthy things on his body, he will not be respected by others. If you want to be a gentleman, You must make yourself knowledgeable and versatile, and often use the principles you have learned to behave against yourself. If you keep doing this, you will have more and more knowledge, and it will be difficult to make any mistakes in your behavior. As the saying goes, if you don't work hard when you are young, you can only be sad when you are old. In life, we always envy others when they can do great things, but how do you know that it takes a lot of hard work for them to be successful? If you want to get knowledge without your own efforts, it is as childish as asking for fish. Chen Xiang's heart was greatly touched by the words he overheard. He forgot to play, rushed home, reflected in his house, looked back on the absurd things he had done before, and regretted that it was too late. From that day on, Chen Xiang resolutely cut off his old friends, and let go of all kinds of small animals raised at home. From then on, he became friends with books, studied hard and diligently every day, and finally became a great poet. Everyone needs to reflect on his own behavior. If Chen Xiang does not reflect, it must be very difficult for him to become a famous poet. If we want to succeed, we must timely clean up the inner, dark clouds, constantly examine ourselves, throw negative factors into the dustbin, learn from past lessons and sum up experience, so as to avoid similar incidents in the future. Wang Yangming discusses Jung with students. He believes that Jung is not a thing, but a scene of self-cultivation and inspection by scholars. The cultivation of virtue by a gentleman, the study of scholars, the way of saints. And even the rule of the monarch should always look for and keep such a scene of self-reflection. If you deviate from this scene, you will fall into the stereotype of selfish desire. Only when one constantly reflects on himself can one continue to improve. A person's ability to make progress and learn is reflected in his ability to reflect. If he can find his own advantages through introspection and give full play to his advantages, he will be able to make extraordinary achievements in this field and achieve success in life. The real tragedy of life is not that each of us does not have enough advantages, but that we fail to use our strengths. Wang Yangming personally practiced and explored the process of realizing the ambition of saints, telling us that everyone can become a saint. Although there are no two identical leaves in the world, everyone's talent is different. But everyone has an outstanding performance, but we don't believe in ourselves enough. We have limited time and energy, so we can't do everything best, but we can certainly do one of them best. In other words, a person must first find his own advantages. By being the best of yourself, you can unwittingly surpass others, cross the gap of mediocrity, and stand out from the crowd.